Hello and welcome to another Crusader Kings 3 developer diary. This time we're going to be talking about the Council, powerful vassals, and spouse Councillor. So interesting stuff. Let's just dive right into it. Greetings friends, I'm Wokeg, and I'm the juniorest of the content designers on CK3. Unless you like anarcho-communist insect people, you almost certainly haven't heard of me. Mostly I scuttle around the office mumbling about the West Country and obscure cultural features, but I'm here to talk to you today about the Council, your powerful vassals, and the role of your spouse in the realm. I think he was playing in the Stellaris Dev Clash as communist cockroaches, so maybe that's what that was referring to. Let's start with the basics. What have we carried over from CK2? Your council still has 5 primary positions: a chancellor, steward, marshal, spymaster, and court chaplain, each relying on a particular skill, respectively being diplomacy, stewardship, martial, intrigue, and learning. So everything there is the same as in CK2. Every councillor is either a vassal or a courtier of yours, and you are mostly able to hire and fire these roles at will. Each of these council positions can be given different tasks relying on an appropriate skill, which help your realm to survive and thrive theoretically. So we can see a bit more of the portraits here as well, which is pretty cool. This one looks particularly fantastic. You have a very long neck. That's a very strange looking face as well. And this one also looks pretty damn good. I will say though, the clothes, I don't know what it is, but they look very shiny. Maybe that can be toned down before release. Or at least I hope so. Maybe they're not using enough subsurface scattering. I don't know. But yeah, the clothes do look very plasticky, like they're made of bin liner. I don't know. Okay, so that should be pretty familiar to most of you. So what's actually changed? Firstly, state skills are gone. While they weren't the worst thing in the world, you tended to forget they existed unless they were utterly abysmal, which was incredibly rare. Plus, personally, I could never get the mental image of your Chancellor leapfrogging in front of the King and clamping a hand over his mouth every time he thought of another dirty joke about the King of France out of my head. Well, I mean, dirty jokes about the kings of France. I mean, they just come out all the time. I mean, it's very difficult to keep them in, to be honest. Instead of affecting your character's skill in certain interactions, Councillor skills now dramatically affect their efficacy at the tasks you set them. A skilled steward not only yanks coins from the hands of undeserving peasants as fast as the peasants earn them, they'll also be much more likely to receive positive minor events while doing it. Similarly, a terrible steward is not just slow, they'll actively bungle things and make a mess of your accounts as they go. Choosing between the politically powerful idiot and the adroit courtier has never been quite so difficult. So, increasing development by county, efficient taxation, increased control. I guess the number here, the -1%, is because of the skill of, I guess this is the steward. And he's skill 9. I'm hoping that isn't the same guy, because -1% for being 9 would be a little bit too low in my opinion. Maybe there's other modifiers like he is unhappy towards his ruler, so therefore the 9 is being like reduced or something, I don't know. To compensate for this a little, merely on being your liege's council will give you a very minor bonus to the appropriate skill for your position. Even a truly terrible councillor has at least some assistance helping them out. Further, tasks do not reset when changing councillors. If you tell your steward to keep increasing the development of a particular county, they'll stick at it until told to stop, pausing if you have no steward at all. Council tasks in specific counties will only stop if the county stops being a valid place to perform that task, such as because of a time-locked action, like religious conversion was completed, or because you lost the county in a war. Instead of listing all the possible tasks each councillor can take, let's keep things light and just have the most interesting, newest task each councillor can perform. So the Chancellor, that's your diplomacy guy, integrate title. Ooh, that's interesting. Speeds de jure drift of a valid title into your realm. God damn it, de jure drift is back. I really hate de jure drift. It just increases the amount of border gore on the map. I'm not a fan of de jure drift in CK2. I hope it changes to at least be less awful, because I don't want it. I don't want it at all. Well, okay. The Marshal increases control in county increasing control gain per month in a specific county. All right. The steward increases development in county, reducing building and holding construction time in a specific county. Boosts development growth per month in the same. The spymaster can find secrets, attempt to learn of secrets in a given court, including your own. And the chaplain can fabricate a claim on a county, gain opportunities to acquire claims on a specific county. This used to be the chancellor's job, but it has switched to the chaplain, which I do think makes sense. I mean, the clergy was the record keepers for the most part, and if you think about it like in a roleplay kind of way, if you're trying to get a claim, if you're trying to fabricate a claim, using the, what fabricate actually means, like fake it, you're not really going to go to your chancellor. You're going to go to the church to say, look, all these records that you're keeping, can you like fudge it so that my distant ancestor used to own this land and he thought it should go down this branch of my family tree instead of the other branch, and therefore it should go to me and not this other dude. Like, it makes sense. I like it. Switching it to the chaplain is a good idea. So, there's a lot of information on non-dramatic differences. Are there any really big changes we've got stored up? Well, it depends. Are you single and outside the reach of that meddlesome pope? Then life might seem pretty smooth, at least for a while. On the other hand, if you're a married Catholic, then what have we got here? Your bishop does not endorse you. Since Aelgil's opinion of you is +1 or less, you gain no levies and taxes from his church holdings. Alright. He does not endorse you. That's something new. The first part of this is marriage, and you may have guessed from the title of this dev diary, the classic 5 slots are now joined by your primary spouse. Historically, spouses were often vital assistants in running the realm, providing counsel and advice even when they, strictly speaking, were not supposed to. Lindy Beige has a really good video on the role of women in like medieval court life, to the point where, if I remember rightly, it's a long time since I've watched it, having court women, sleeping around was really good to share secrets and sharing information around, and it kept the realm stable. And then there was a certain king, it was either the King of France or the King of England, that completely shut all of that down, and it was pretty ruinous for the country as a result. Like, these women were incredibly important, so having at least the wife of the ruler be more important is a really good idea, I think. We model this by giving them a variety of council tasks, each one boosting your stats directly by taking some of the weight of leadership off your shoulders. The default is a generic assist ruler task, simply helping out here and there, and providing a minor flat boost to all skills for those rulers who feel they can pretty much tackle the world unassisted. Discounting vassals as assistants because, obviously. If you need more specialized help, you can also have them boost a specific stat directly. This adds a large portion of their skill directly to yours, as you offload an immense amount of power and responsibility onto your spouse, lending them your authority in exchange for their skill. While focusing in this manner, they'll only boost their assigned skill, so you need to choose how they support you carefully. If you don't have a spouse, well, that's okay. Single feudal heirs are out there just waiting to meet you. If you have a spouse and they're landed, I'm afraid they've got better things to do than to finish your lordly homework for you. This is very interesting. That's very, very interesting. So, a big part of the marriage game in CK2 was trying to secure women that had some land so that your children would inherit from both parents, and then you would grow your territory that way. And this is now a double-edged sword, because if they are landed, they're not going to be helping you in the manner that we've just read about. You'll still get the land, but you won't get the benefits until that happens. That's very interesting. I like that a lot. Now, for the second of our 2 major differences. Have you ever heard the phrase, will no one will rid me of this turbulent priest? Will no one will rid me of this turbulent priest? I haven't, no. Whether that's because you wrote it wrong or because I've just never heard it, I don't know. Well, we've got some turbulent priests for you. Certain faiths, details on which other than Catholicism to follow in a later diary, replace the court chaplain with a bishop. If you still have a court chaplain, then they'll behave much like other councillors. though some faiths may still have a harder time firing them. Bishops use a mechanic called leasing, though they're not the only ones to do so, whereby they will control all levies and receive all taxes from every temple holding in your personal domain. Additionally, your bishop will receive a fraction of the taxes and levies generated by all of your vassals' bishops. All told, that's a lot of ducats the church seems to be getting, isn't it? Just definitely seems that way, doesn't it? Of course, as loyal subjects of the crown, your bishop will be very happy to hand over taxes and troops to you, scaling with quite how happy they are. A loyal bishop is a huge boon for your economy and military, and can make the difference between unstoppable royal might and economic ruin. A recalcitrant bishop, by contrast, is an utter pain. If they do not approve of you at least a little, they'll hold back taxes and levies until you meet their standards again. And if they actively hate you, may even begin conspiring with us to replace you with a more pious monarch. Of course, you're probably asking what stops you from firing your bishop and replacing them with, say, a good friend of yours. Around these parts, that's what we call heresy. You'll have to wait until a religious dev diary for details on exactly what your options are for legally sacking your bishop. As for illegally, well, no pope can stop a knife to the base of the spine. Well, what if he uses like a miracle or something? That's a thing they can do, isn't it? I don't know. Turbulent priests indeed. So, I guess that's what this is then. The bishop does not endorse you, so his opinion is too low, and he is not giving you taxes and troops, and is probably going to try and replace you at some point as well. Interesting stuff indeed. So now we're looking at powerful vassals. Again, we've got another lovely portrait there with very, very shiny clothes. Our final talking point for today is the subject of powerful vassals. These should be familiar to many of you who from CK2's Conclave expansion. Powerful vassals are the wealthiest lords with the highest levy counts in the realm. They're powerful, influential, and unruly, and if you ignore them, at your peril. The higher your tier, the more of them you'll have to contend with, and eventually you're going to have to pick who you want to snub rather than how you want to please everyone. I've actually found this to be the opposite. If I'm an emperor with king tier titles beneath me, generally only the kings are going to be powerful vassals. If I'm a king and I've got a lot of duchies, however, then yeah, for sure. But as soon as you get to emperor, you lose a lot of powerful vassals. As in Conclave, powerful vassals always expect a seat on your council. They're the greatest magnets of their day, damn it, and they demand to be heard. Leaving out one of the political cold will give you a huge opinion penalty with that character, since a council seat is theirs by right of might. Not any particular seat, mind you, and just because they might not be able to organize an army to save their life, that's no reason for you to not give them the role of marshal. Power is basically the same as competence. Wait, are they going to demand certain seats and not care, like, they will actually care about which seat you give them? That's going to be interesting if that's the case. So what do you actually get out, directly get out of acquiescing to these uppity lords? Well, there's one very important function that powerful vassals tie into directly, changing your succession. CK2 required you to have all vassals who both de jure and de facto belong to one of your titles approve of you before you could change your succession. In CK3, that veto belongs to your powerful vassals alone, and they very much know it. Finally, powerful vassals are also hooked into a number of other systems in little ways, some of which may be talked about in later dev diaries, some of which we can talk about here. In elective successions, they usually receive more votes, as they have more sway over the realm's processes. When recruiting for schemes, powerful vassals make better agents, provided you can persuade them, and since they know this, they're also harder to use the sway scheme on. And lastly, an unhappy powerful vassal in a faction is far more worrisome prospect, more in factions later down the line. So we've got someone who approves and somebody who opposes something. Alright, well, that's all we have to say on your council's functions for now. I hope that this has answered some of your burning questions and got you excited to manage the governance of your realm. Next week, we'll have some notes on characters, portraits, and traits. Portraits. Fix the shine, hopefully. Anyway, there's some more stuff that I want to go into because Wokeg has been very active answering questions on the forum, so we'll go through some of those. If my interpretation is correct, are bishops exclusively councillors now rather than landed holders of temples, in the sense that a count would have a single bishop for his temples and a duke for his and the king for his? Yes and no. That is the system for your religious councillor, but ecclesiastical characters can absolutely hold land in their own right too. So you can have, say, an archbishop who is refusing to give you taxes, while the Prince Bishop of York, who directly holds the Duchy of York and its vassals, is factioning against you. Or the church may be your biggest supporter. Depends on you, really. I just hope the council isn't as easily controlled as in CK2. Between powerful vassals not being able to join factions and buying favours, realm management is far too easy and rebellions too rare. Keeping your vassals in line should take far more effect. On the other hand, the AI already has issues with it. I'm still not sure about just having one bishop in your realm. It may make sense for game mechanics, but it just doesn't feel right. And in line with above, it may make the church too easy to control. It's more like a series of bishops, and they're not fussy about letting you know you're not meeting their standards, say during a vital war, where you're trying to beat the King of France, and then your archbishop just starts moralizing about how you need to stop executing everyone all the time, and who will rid me of this turbulent priest. Oh, I did it again. Suffice to say, they're more troublesome than you might think. Very nice. I like this. Being troublesome priests are fun. I think this one is all about the screenshots aren't taken from the same council. That's good, because some of those didn't make sense together. That's fine. Really digging the new Archbishop system. In CK2, there was never a major reason to care about any of your theocratic vassals. As long as the Pope was happy, everyone else could be safely ignored. Glad you like it. The Pope is also able to be independently mad at you, and excommunication becomes a lot scarier when it mostly annoys your bishop. When it will mostly annoy your bishop enough that they cut off your gold supply, until you happen to be very friendly with said bishop, for which we have an array of schemes to suit the taste. It seems like your economy is very, very tied to the church. It definitely seems that way. If he's saying, oh yeah, the bishop cutting off your gold is going to be a major thing that you're going to really hurt with, yeah, I mean, that definitely seems like the church is very, very important. Just a little question. With powerful vassals now being the only ones you need to change succession laws, how do you plan to offset that major power loss for normal vassals? Or should we care even less about them now, except for the obvious and mostly only use in providing those single feudal heirs, preferably beautiful, strong genius ones, aged appropriately? That's a little more tied into some subsystems I don't believe I'm allowed to talk about right now, but essentially there's a combination of factors that make you more likely to have fewer, more powerful vassals, as well as somewhat buffing the potential threat of factions, since multiple characters means more potential knights and men-at-arms. Can't give you screenshots of the whole council, unfortunately. If half the realm is one religion and half is the other religion, do each of these religions have their own political head, or just one for the realm? If there's one for the realm, does it collect revenues from priests from other religions, and it's opinion-based, but they're still under the control of the main religious head? Well, your bishop, if you have one, is the theological councillor for your realm. They collect taxes from any bishops under them who have the same religion, like Catholic bishops wouldn't collect from an Orthodox one, and from temple holdings in your personal domain, regardless of the religion in the counties, those temple holdings. They're in charge of the land even if they don't own it, and common folk still pay rent to a leaseholder even if that leaseholder is of a different religion and very preachy about it. Exactly how you get a bishop rather than a court chaplain won't be talked about anymore until we do a dev diary on religions. Okay. Will biracial characters be more accurately represented with this character system, or will they be strictly as one of the parents did in the CK2? Characters dev diaries up next week, so we can't see that yet. But I mean, didn't they say already that, like, skin color would change not as a binary kind of thing? I'm fairly sure that has already been answered, but I can't remember. Does the whip icon below councillors mean they are controlled by a secret or hook? Because it would be rather irrational to put a negative 54 opinion on a spy master in a seat if you don't control him somehow. Classified. That's a yes. Let's go and have a look for that. Spy master, where are you? Negative 54 spy master, and there's a whip. Could be. It definitely could be. I guess these are the jobs that you can send them on as well. Because, I mean, surely there'd be more than 3 jobs each. But then what are these? And yeah, having the top one selected kind of makes me think that they are the specific jobs. But yeah, well spotted by that guy. Maybe he's got hooks. Is it a whip or is it a hook? That's the question. I mean, it looks like a whip. But whips do look like hooks as well. I don't know. For unclassified things, you're entirely correct that any character who dislikes you that much is a terrible choice to have as your spy master, and the ruler who chose them probably isn't long for the world. Probably he was just put there for the screenshot and they didn't really care about the opinion, is my guess. But also, I mean, he might be right with the hook thing. With the now empowered spouses, do they have their own agenda now? If we choose to empower said spouses, can they actively choose to sabotage you? Something we'd like to do more of going forward. The basis is there. Can't say quite how much we're going down with it just yet. Do all vassals still need to be at peace for succession changes? At present, no. Fantastic. That is great. Although that is subject to change. Assistants sound interesting. Are these actual characters or do they represent a generic team of bureaucrats that help the councillor? Currently, they're a generic team of bureaucrats rather than specific characters. While that's not to rule out events about an interesting bureaucrat here and there, we do prefer that our characters be impactful, and modelling, say, the third undercleric to the exchequer isn't the best use of your processing power, unless they're embezzling from you, or spying for the King of France, or both. My spouse will be more than a simple baby-making machine, finally. I hope we also get more events about the interpersonal relationships between married characters and their sons and relatives, beside the already very much present adultery events in CK2. On interpersonal relationship event, definitely things we want to have more of. Yeah, in CK2, generally, unless you got the event that made you fall in love with your wife, you generally didn't really have all that much to do with them. I notice there are no advisors on the council. I assume the position is gone for good. At present, we don't have advisors in the game. Afraid your vassals have stopped falling for that old con. That's unfortunate. That was very useful. On another note, you say in the dev diary that a powerful vassal now demands a specific spot on the council. What if two vassals demand the same seat, or will their demands never conflict with each other? To clarify, that was intended to be an example. Duke Jeff of Greater Oppressionia doesn't care whether you make him a marshal, a spymaster, steward, or chancellor, or if your religion allows it, your court chaplain. He just wants to be there. The only exception to this is your spouse position, since landed spouses do not gain the council spouse position. They have their own lands to look after. So you can't marry Duke Jeff to get him off your back about giving him a council spot. Alright, so that whole thing was a bit of a red herring then. They won't demand specific spots, unfortunately. Will a councillor be able to lead armies too? Yes. They're not relegated to one job, presumably, especially if they're a knight. If they got assistance, so their job is to take care of their job is taken care of, provided they can reach for communication. If they're leading an army, it's not ideal, but letters exist. But if they're imprisoned, say because they were leading an army and got captured in battle, they can no longer be a councillor, and tasks will auto-pause until you put someone else in the job. Alright? Really hoping this doesn't mean de jure land will be used as a basis kind of core provinces system. A flat 100 years is fine in CK2. No, it's not. And I really don't like the idea of anything resembling the rapidly chaining core provinces of EU4. It works for that game, but something like core land or de jure should mostly be static. I agree. I don't like de jure drift. He's talking about de jure drift here. I don't like it either. It's a really valid concern, one I share myself. EU4's system is great for EU, but isn't how CK2 should run. Sorry, CK should run. We're very much aware of this, and flipping de jure land is something that's intended to be slow and take time. It should take infinite time and not be a thing, but whatever. Councillor task is there to let you focus on speeding up a little in specific areas. Can I slow it down? That would be nice. On the other hand, outside of the early game, assuming personal domain limit is anything close to what is in CK2, I foresee every wife being either the assist ruler or manage domain tasks. More personal domain equals more money and more power. It depends on what your spouse is good at and what you need. A spouse with terrible stewardship score doesn't really contribute much to your economic gain, but might be ludicrously adept at intrigue or martial matters. Personally, I prefer a spouse who helps me murder people over one that helps me counting my taxes. I always go for high stewardship, because more domain limit, always. Unless they've got like super awesome traits like genius or something that I want, or if they have land that I eventually want to be a part of me. Can you please explain how bishops differ in CK3? I've heard mixed things on this and I'm slightly confused. It's my understanding that all bishops are now vassals of a bishop rather than the counts they would normally be in CK2. Does that mean you now only get one bishop per realm, and how do they differ from archbishops? If a bishop holds a duchy title, then is he still a prince bishop, presumably? I think it would be a shame if all bishops were kind of sidelined and their only relevant or important cleric is the main archbishop of your kingdom. If we ignore bishops who hold land in their own right, a bishop is a variant of the court chaplain position, which some religions have and some don't. If you have a bishop, they get all of the taxes and levies from every temple holding in your direct domain, as well as a portion of taxes from your vassals, same religion bishops if they have them. You will mainly be dealing with that bishop, and they're intended to be more troublesome, fractious individuals than single bishops in CK2 were. The archbishop title in the dev diary is a flavor text. The exact type of bishop you get depends on your religion and tier. Count may only have a bishop while a duke has an archbishop, and so on. Since it's flavor, they're pretty subject to change. We're still getting our unlanded bishop ranks sorted. Alright. And there's more. There is more. Okay. How does the mathematics work on find secrets the spymaster can do? You can't go into exact math. Spymaster, I believe, is more likely to find your secret if you're the only one in court with a secret. Relative intrigue matters, and smaller secrets are easier to find than larger ones. Echo the curiosity of some others. If you're able to go into this much detail, aside from the question of who they answer to, do individual bishops still exist in the same manner of barons and mayors? No, they don't. Your bishop controls all the temple baronies in your domain, receives taxes, blah blah blah. We've read this a ton of times already. Few questions. Is the title bishop, archbishop different if you're a different tier of nobility? Do counts have bishops, dukes have archbishops? Yes, exactly that. Okay. Is there a difference in power between bishops and archbishop rank? Technically, no. In practice, like you wouldn't believe, levies and taxes add up, and a powerful king with a lot of land will likely have a very powerful archbishop, even though that bishop is notionally a humble spiritual advisor. Can you assign a bishop to a job like other councillors must he like you? You can still assign them to different tasks, even if they're being obstinate about paying taxes. Can we appoint a bishop as a councillor, or is he appointed by the pope when older ones die? Can a pope replace bishops if they become loyal to secular liege? Both parts of this question are classified. Alright. One of the most disappointing things in CK2 is how the friends and rivals system is almost always wasted, because being friends or rivals with anyone other than a powerful vassal is fairly meaningless overall. Because everyone is potential friend and rival, it feels like 90% of the time you've got meaningless barons or cousins as friends and rivals, when neither the benefits nor the drawbacks matter very much to you at all. This is something we put a lot of time and effort into making better. Friends and rivals should always be impactful, and we're trying to involve these relationships much more heavily. Lovely. Will spouses get events and interactions based on the attribute area of focus they're empowered to help with? Things like people complaining about meddling, the spouse having a mind of their own, maybe different from yours, or just ordinary type events that your councillors might get when helping you govern. Not something we've given a huge amount of time, effort, attention at the moment, I'm afraid, but that's purely a prioritization issue. Definitely something we're very keen on having more and more content for the future. No wonder the marshal has a measly 6 skill. He's gripping his sword by the blade, the fool. That's not bad. Oh, it was Starcher Tech as well. Come on, Starcher Tech. You should know that you're able to grip the sword by the bloody blade. It's called half swording. Fool of a took. Anyway, I like there's more of an incentive now to have good relations with the church, but I'm not a fan of how this all hinges on a single character. More stuff about the bloody bishop. Well, greedy bishop with similar traits to you isn't a huge obstacle, typically. If you get along with the church gets along with you. On the other hand, say the bishop isn't greedy, bribes aren't so good then. Say you have a few opposing character traits, especially if some of those are sins for your religion. Now you've got a bit of a trouble on your hands. Say this happens mid-war or just after succession, rather than when everything is at peace. You need that sway scheme to get agents for your murder plot, but now you're having to suck up to the church just to get your economy under control. Then the Pope drops an excommunication in your lap because you keep openly attempting to murder people, and yeah. Alright, fair enough. Generally I feel gameplay elements work best when they play into cascading failure. No one system should require you to focus entirely on that system to keep it working. things should generally be fixable. It's just a case of where you allocate your time and resources. And if this or that is a problem, it's a priority for you right now. Even if pleasing your bishop jumps your personal priority queue the most of the time, it's still causing interesting problems elsewhere just by existing. All right. God, big one. Incompetent buffoon would still demand be given a position. That's fine. Managing that should be part of your gameplay experience and be interesting enough and reflects reality, probably. Kind of always hated how everyone would almost invariably turn out to be completely worthless, though, which immediately transforms this mechanic into one of the most irritating parts of the game. Your mileage may vary on that one, so we do still support swapping your council positions without firing people. That's good to hear. So you need every council to be utterly useless at all stats to get completely screwed over. Alright. I'm confused about the bishop. It seems like a lot of people are. Bishops use a mechanic called leasing. If I'm a one-county count, my single county has a single temple holding, I automatically lease that holding to my bishop. I still own it. It's always considered an inalienable part of my counties until someone takes it, and then it's an inalienable part of their county. But the taxes and levies go straight to the bishop. In other words, rather than have a dozen minor bishops per sizable sub-realm, all sending taxes to your bishop simply receives all the income directly. For then at a liege with a bishop of the same religion, my bishop would also pay a portion of this income to my liege's bishop. Huh, that was a long one. 30 minutes, right. Well, that's done. That's awesome. Alright, so that is the dev diary, and yeah, it was a pretty chunky one. Wokeg is very verbose, let's say, especially in his replies, which is great. Seeing him reply so much to the community and answering all the questions, especially the ones that seem to be identical to one another, was great. And there should be more of that. And if you want to see more of the devs answering people's questions, then tomorrow at 11:30 Swedish time, AM, they will be doing a monthly dev live chat for CK3 in the official Discord server. So you'll be able to ask them your burning questions, probably about bishops, and yeah, they'll be talking there. So I'm unfortunately going to be busy at that time, so I can't be there directly, but I'm sure somebody will have recorded it, and I will have a look at that afterwards and possibly do a video on any interesting things that I discover from that. But yeah. For now, this is the dev diary, and I think it was quite an interesting one. I would love to know, though, what you guys think. So please do leave your comments in the comment section below. If you liked the video, then like, and then if you want to keep up to date on any CK3 news and updates, then hit the subscribe button. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.